can Labour convince voters that they'll make a difference when they have, in effect, the same tax and spending plans as the Conservatives? Well, Rachel Reeves, the Shadow Chancellor, joins us now, and she's on the 10th floor of a building site in London, so I'm hoping you can hear me all right, Shadow Chancellor.
I can, Margaret, it's great to talk to you.
Good, okay. Now, your main criticism of the government is that the national insurance tax cut is dwarfed by the way that allowances are proposed. You call that as Tory self-tax. So would you change that? Would you ensure that tax thresholds rise with inflation?
Well, I want taxes on working people to be lower, and so we will support the cuts to national insurance, but they do need to be seen within the context of a rising tax burden. And indeed, the numbers from the Office of Budget Responsibility yesterday show that across the forecast, if you take into account the different tax changes, the tax burden continues to rise, and the average family will be £870 worse off at the end of the forecast period. So the government has given with one hand but taken much more than the other.
But I want to know whether you'll end up doing the same thing, because I understand that you're accepting the government's cuts to national insurance. You didn't give me an answer about tax thresholds, fiscal planning. So everything you're describing as a self-tax, would you do something about it?
So I want the tax burden to be lower on working people, but I won't make it private expensive tax like the government does. I will always ensure that the numbers add up. That is why it had been my opinion the focus has been on growing the economy. It's why I'm here today as a building site, because we do need to get Britain building again. We've got to grow our economy, because that is the way to lift the tax, to have the money to invest sustainably in our public services. And so if it had been my budget, it would have been about unlocking the private sector investment by creating a national wealth fund to invest alongside business, modern industrial strategy, forming our graduate system, releasing the apprenticeship levy, the growth and skills levy to help businesses get the skills that they need. Do those things, we have a chance of actually getting some growth in our economy.
Well,
We're in a recession right now. We've got to get us out of this.
I've heard many shadow chancellors over the year promising exactly that there will be spending when they get to the point that you need to accept that that is going to take time. If you're elected chancellor, when you come, we don't have a spending limit. We will have to make very quick decisions on the spending because the current capital will run out in March next year. You're going to have to make some serious spending cuts.
Well, the government didn't change the trajectory for public spending yesterday, and we also know, Mark, that we do have some targeted tax increases to put an immediate injection of cash into public services, so empty the tax loopholes whereby private equity bosses don't pay taxes on their bonuses.
That's all of the tax perspective there, because the government's already spent the money that you want to get warned of, for example, energy level. They're already spending that on taxes, so you've got far less to pay for.
Well, on the windfall tax, most specifically, the government has still left loopholes in the energy profits levy that they use to close those loopholes and use that money to help finance cheap energy from publicly owned energy company to reduce energy bills and to create jobs in the
They will be able to do that, but you were making big promises with exactly what you're doing. You're making big promises about concepts, about cheaping approaches, dentistry, rescue plans, standards, okay.
So if you continue through that, the government yesterday, in a massive humiliation, has adopted the plans that Labour have put forward for years now to close the loophole whereby non-bonds don't pay taxes despite spending their home here in Britain. I welcome the fact that the government has finally accepted the rationale for that. And what has taken them so long? Because money could have been invested in the NHS these last few years if they had done it.
You're not going to have the money because that money was drawn out of national insurance tax cuts.
So what we will do now, the government will publish all the documents yesterday, is go through every aspect, every tax base, and make sure that we can continue to fund those commitments to reduce NHS waiting lists, the emergency dental appointments, and free breakfast clubs at primary schools. We will do that in an orderly way, you know, Martha, that there won't be any policies in the Labour manifesto that are fully costed and fully confronted. But it's important to me that fiscal responsibility always comes first. We will find that money because it is a national priority.
So in an orderly way, but you will know that the money comes either from the taxpayer or from borrowing or from spending cuts elsewhere. So what will your overall approach be?
Look, we're going to go through the documents and see what it expects me to do, and we will identify the savings we can make to address almost everything in our manifesto that we can put in fully funded and we can absolutely confident of that. I've worked with the stick back thing that the private people can do. I know how important it is to keep it in public finances, and I'm absolutely determined to do just that.
We've seen directions from the taxes cuts in national insurance, but also a serious talk about abolishing national insurance altogether. Is that something that you can do?
I think you just asked me how I'd like to go on as well as that. But the government yesterday suggested that they announced national insurance entirely at a cost of £46 billion. That is the unfunded commitment to taxpayers that even Liz Truss wasn't wanting to try. So the question to the Chancellor is this a real promise? Is this a real our taxes are going to come down. I'm never going to make a commitment without saying where the money is going to come from. That is a clear difference now between this Chancellor and how I view it.
Rachel Reeves, Shelley Keys, or competent or alongside these witnesses?
So basically, like you and me saying we'd like to win the lottery. It's not that we wouldn't like to win the lottery, it's just that what we'd like to do and what is likely to happen are not necessarily the same thing. And were Jeremy Hunt to actually promise it as a cast iron promise, it would come with a colossal bill. So the way we should think about it is a dividing line of aspiration. He's trying to underline the conservative tax-cutting instinct against a backdrop of the opposite, of historically high tax returns, which accuses the opposite of responsibility. What happened a household ago? The key line in their document, Economic and Fiscal Outlook, page 8, taxes are showing the economy rises gradually in every year of the forecast of the economy to pay 37.4% of GDP size by 2028, which is the highest level since 1948. So you put that sentence alongside some of the headlines you see this morning about this graphic next, and you see the breadth of that.
Why don't we make a Rachel Reeves for saying that 10th floor of a building site which she just spoke just a moment ago? Because David Hartley always come on here and say, well, we come up with ideas, and the trouble is they get nicked, and then you ask for some more ideas. And that has happened, hasn't it, on these two things, the windfall tax and the profits of oil and gas companies and abolition of the non-dom status. They have had those ideas, as it were, thieved by Conservatives, and that does leave them with a bit of a problem, so they're going to find some more money.
Yeah, a problem, but a problem of their own making. That's what's interesting here. They have been pickpocketed, there's no doubt about it. Martha did her best to try and get an answer on the whole business of thresholds and whether Labour might be willing to move tax thresholds. No answer whatsoever from Rachel Reeves. You might argue if you were Labour this morning after the budget, as you were acknowledging there, would they realistically be able to answer all of those questions, particularly when they're seeking to emphasise what they hope will be perceived as the economic credibility. In other words, taking time. But it does mean some rather key questions around their taxing and their spending promises are currently blank, and they'll have to find those answers. Now, the reason they've got to find those answers is because of a choice. They have decided that they will accept those tax cuts to national insurance that were announced by the Chancellor, and in so doing create themselves a black hole that they somehow have to fill. They didn't have to do that. They could have said, no, we wouldn't endorse that tax cut, but then there would be a dividing line that they wouldn't want to see because they acknowledge the reality that is there, which is the tax burden is so high and that lots of people would like to see it come down. So here we have playing out, we're hearing it on the programme this morning, the central, crucial tussle of coming months on the countdown to the general election. This battle for economic credibility, where Labour think they've made strides in terms of how they are perceived economically, in that the Conservatives usually a strong hand for them, but obviously a point of vulnerability at the moment because of all of the realities that we're kicking around. That tussle between Jeremy Hunt and Rachel Reeves, absolutely fascinating one.
Indeed, there's a thought for the day. Chris Mason, our political editor, thank you so much, and we'll be speaking to the Chancellor at 8:10.
And talking of what we get, it is time indeed for that now. The speaker this morning in our studio is Bishop Richard Harris. Good morning.
Good morning. Every day, Hirayama gets up, washes his face, trims his moustache, grabs a cup of coffee, and then heads off into Tokyo to clean the public toilets. It's a job he takes the utmost seriously, polishing taps until they shine, and even looking behind pipes with a mirror to suss out the leaking dirt. It's a subject of a lot of newly released film, Perfect Day, which vividly poses the question of what it is to live well. One of the features of Hirayama's life is his strict adherence to routine. He always goes into the same path for his lunch break and the same at his break. As a person who likes routine myself and sympathize with it, indeed one of my half serious personal habits is find a good run and get stuck. The point about this routine for Hirayama is it enables him to really notice what is happening around him, the sunlight through the leaves, the shadows, the look on a child's face. His steady routine helps him to live fully in the present. Indeed, a key piece of dialogue in the film are the words, next is next, now is now. Those who practice mindfulness will feel very much at home with this way of life, and there's clearly some Buddhist influence behind the film. But I found as a Christian that it very much resonated with me as well. Christian writers talk about the sacrament of the present moment, not in the past or the future, but here, in the now, in the right moment. Other words came to mind from a poem by George Herbert. He writes that Drudgery can become divine, who sweeps the room for thy laws may stand in empty time. The way of life of Hirayama is clearly admirable, with many questions. Yes and no, and his is a very self-contained one. But most of us are strongly affected by the world of art, the relationship to it, and what we see or hear about human suffering. For me, the challenge is how to be part of that world with all its emotional disturbance, and at the same time retain something of Hirayama's inner tranquility. I don't think there's any easy answer, but I do find a clue in the parting words of Jesus to his followers. that he would give them his own peace, which the world couldn't do. They suggest the possibility of living in a world which does affect them, and at the same time having a deep inner stability.
I spoke today. Time now. 12 minutes.
Ukraine says it's containing Russian advances as they continue to push on 5 different areas of the front line. However, in the eastern Donetsk region, several villages have been captured and the invading forces took the town of Avdiivka last week. Kyiv has blamed stalling Western support for losing territorial lives, and there are fears that more settlements could follow as Moscow makes its size increasingly apparent. Our Ukraine correspondent James Waterhouse has been to the cities just behind the front line, preparing themselves for what might be over the horizon.
So we've just arrived at a bakery in Konstantinivka, and as soon as we got out of the cars, there was the thud of incoming artillery, followed by the siren. You never quite get used to it. You can only imagine what it is like to live through this day after day.
And then you have this warm reception, a wooden panelled kitchen, the smell of fresh bread, the sight of them being loaded into an oven. There's a vast selection of pastries and bagels and pizzas as well, although it might be a bit early for that. Now, Darina runs this place, and she's really starting to feel the effects of this war.
Some staff left, and some people who we delivered our bread to also left. We used to work for Bakhmut, Solidar, and nearby towns. These places are now occupied. That's why we cannot bring our goods there.
The baked goods are snapped up by soldiers, police officers, plenty of locals who all have this lingering threat on their minds.
We are staying until the last minute. Children are begging us to leave, but we resist so far.
Konstantinivka's main train station used to be a frontline hub, but it was hit by a Russian missile. There's still the smell of burning in the air. The arches along its front still stand. The rest of the building's been heavily damaged. There are cracks in the converted road. Across the road, gold panelling has been blown away from the towers of the cathedral. This is a symptom of the approaching Russian time. We're following Maria, Kola, and Jessie the dog. They're walking to meet Maria's mum, and they have a difference of view over whether it's safe to stay in Konstantinivka. How has Konstantinivka changed in recent days and weeks here?
The situation in Konstantinivka is very tense. The military say this, and we feel it because the strikes are more frequent. We are tired all day. We have bad mood and panic attacks, constant depression. It's scary to go outside when you hear explosions. I think we have to leave.
Tatiana, you know what I'm going to ask, and you're going to leave.
I've already left twice. What's the point? I still returned to where I came from. It's scary everywhere. Everywhere. Our whole country is on fire.
As the train rolls up to Kramatorsk station, tucked in between two cargo carriages to protect it from shelling, the sound of artillery in the distance.
On BBC Radio 4 at BBC Sounds. Begins next Thursday afternoon at 4.
8 minutes to 6 now. You're listening to PM. We'll have a summary of the news from Vidya.
Rishi Sunak has said the measures announced in the budget yesterday show the Conservatives mean business when they say they want to lower taxes. The Prime Minister said the government acted responsibly and gave substantial help to working families. But the leading economic research group, the IFS, said the budget had not changed anything significantly. The Scottish Government England has announced a public inquiry into the way police conducted the original investigation into the murder of Emma Caldwell about 20 years ago. Ian Packer was convicted last week, but was never treated as a suspect to begin with. The inquiry will be led by a judge and will have the power to compel witnesses to give evidence. A woman charged in connection with the death of her baby has told the Old Bailey she only ever showed the child love. Constance Martin broke down in tears as she gave evidence in her defense. She and her partner, Mark Gordon, denied charges including manslaughter by gross negligence and child cruelty. Sweden has become the 32nd member of NATO at a ceremony in Washington. The NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg says Sweden's admittance will make the alliance stronger, but Russia has warned of retaliatory action, especially if NATO troops are deployed on Swedish territory. A Hamas delegation has left talks in Egypt aimed at securing a ceasefire in the war in Gaza. A statement from the militant group said Israel had thwarted attempts to reach a deal, rejecting demands to end its offensive, withdraw its forces, and allow displaced Palestinians to return to their homes. Israel had not sent a delegation to Cairo, saying it first wanted a list of surviving hostages. The Formula One team, Red Bull, has suspended a woman who accused the team principal of inappropriate and controlling behavior. Christian Horner denies the allegations, and Red Bull's board dismissed the complaint after an internal investigation. BBC Sport has learned the reason given by Red Bull to the employee was that she had been dishonest.
Vijay, thank you. Now, over in the US, politics this year will be dominated by a rerun of the Biden-Trump fight from 2020. A repeat it may be, still worth watching. Indeed, it's hard to avert one's gaze sometimes at the sometimes bizarre events playing out in this election year. Today's story is the State of the Union address. Now, that's an annual duty of the President, a constitutional requirement, for him to head down to Capitol Hill and address a joint session of Congress to say what's up. Joe Biden gets a prime time slot to set out his program. This is about the latest, by the way, State of the Union has ever been. It's late January. Now, Joe Biden's mission to me is to settle the pitch that will claw back dwindling support. 57% of Americans say they disapprove of him in polls. That's higher than it's ever been. What is he doing wrong? Let us talk to someone who thinks hard about these things, someone who you know from this country but also spent part of his time in the US, Simon Sharp, author and historian. And Simon, thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Give us your analysis of why Joe Biden isn't more popular. And I'm asking you because I know that you're not a Trumpist. I know that you would rather Joe Biden won the election. Why do Americans not agree with you?
Well, it's a terrible situation. It doesn't make it better. I think it'll.
今朝6點2已經落咗飛嘅。
OK， 跟住搭呢個火車。
去細佬屋企過咗幾個鐘頭，然後就跟住細佬帶我去搭火車，喺呢忽高嗰度搭火車。
哦，係咩？我話佢去 Stratford 嗰度。
係都要搭呢個地鐵，然後先至轉火車嘅。
Why the taxpayer puts the bill for a ministerial instruction of that kind and onto its desk. In the Commons, MPs refuse to raise it. So here is Labour MP Justin Mayor.
Can we have it take some personal responsibility? If I say or tweet something that is defamatory, I would expect to be responsible for the consequences of that, not the taxpayer. I think that's what the public would expect as well.
So the Prime Minister was asked about the matter today. He was visiting a pub in South Yorkshire. He said he had other matters.
呢兩個禮拜都唔係好凍啊，即係唔係特別凍，
都凍，即係唔係超級凍，即係10度以下或者15度以下啦。
係咪今個月尾轉
應該差唔多啩，應該3月尾。東宮3月20號又嚟英國。
哦，你幾耐啊？今次
好似3個月㗎，
連3個月咁啊。
好似係。
咁我嚟幫你睇下㗎。
clear that a bill might be
睇下啲揼風啊！
that goes pretty
如果我將細 B 抌俾你，你就抽唔掂。
what's called the accounting officer for the government
咁俾我梗係湊唔掂啦，仔。
Parliament over whether the spend, the money that the department's going to spend.
O K 嘅，佢之前流鼻血，
So
跟住係佢係細 B 係，佢係睇醫生，跟住就話佢係病毒感染要查 cream。
咁而家點啊？
練到之後留過一次嘅，但係查5日咁。佢禮拜一發生嘅。我要即刻去 A 型醫院，因為佢打電話去 surgery 先9點半打，打到11點先有人聽嗰陣時話已經話無謂睇佢。跟住我有影啲相俾 manager 佢睇，跟住佢話你去 A 型醫院 OK 啊。
rented out his own property, and he found himself getting into a bit of a
細 B 早餐咗幾耐？一個幾
2個月。佢8個禮拜咁咯，早餐。
咁早產咗，差少少啦。不過好在佢啲。
佢 OK 咯，健康上咯，佢都唔係嚴重嘅，都係嗰啲病咳啊，即係普通細路仔會有。
咁嘅啫，哦呢個知。啊呢
係
91歲，會唔會帶佢翻香港攞移民身份證啊？
我唔知啊，要翻去攞俾佢，佢唔攞會點？攞佢點唔攞佢點？
唔攞咪冇咗，即係做香港居民嗰個權利咯。
哦咁㗎。
咁一夠11歲，因為香港法律好似1個月之內就要換移民身份證啊嘛，咁你自己叫阿子慧自己上網查啦，係咪？咁攞唔攞係你自己決定嘅，係咪？
香港依家點？香港即係咪安定繁榮？係咪就係乜都唔敢做？
我翻去嗰1-2個星期，我點可以俾到呢個評語啊？仔，
咁你覺得點？即係同以前一樣啊，定係有變啊？
會好似一個遊客咁樣，淨係去睇下嗰啲商場城嗰啊。 你不如問下子慧仲好啦，子慧成日睇香港新聞，睇香港嘢。
咪好大分別咯，喺新聞嘅嚟講，係咁話要推嗰23條，即係位進講一講，跟住就俾嗰個特首話佢用詞，但佢都係就係話啲民生唔好，跟住就已經話佢散佈不實嘅之類嗰啲，好恐怖。幾個禮拜之前。
咁你哋自己咪仲清楚過我都冇聽香港新聞，冇睇香港新聞。
封咗。
Done a great job for Voyager 1. It's just flying on out there into space, and we just have to say goodbye to it.
I don't think so. NASA has not made any such announcements and is not expected to either. And the reason is very simple. We are in a part of the galaxy, actually, which we have never been before.
本身如果喺英國生活嗰個政治環境同埋你哋喺度點都好過喺香港生活。即係你同阿子慧都可以有穩定嘅工作。喂，講政治環境嚟講，冇人睇得通1、20年嘅嘢㗎啦。
我覺得今年係打仗年喎，即係可能中國打台灣啊，或者以色列嗰邊大爆發。
以色列嗰邊連10幾年都未停過㗎啦，就係中國打台灣我就覺得冇咁嘅可能。
我覺得係，即係可能因為佢中國經濟唔掂咧，跟住就會搞啲嘢啊嘛。因為佢啲人民啊，開始起出嚟想反對政府嘅話，因為佢冇嘢做之類嗰啲雞吉啦狗高，跟住佢唔掂嘅話，唯有係即係搞啲嘢令到啲人咪唔會反抗嘅話，咁咪打上咁啲人冇時間搞嘢㗎，我覺得係咁。跟住以色列嗰邊，佢之前紅海嗰邊咧，好似也門嗰度，跟住有啲 terrorist， 即係係咪叫 terrorist？ 即係嗰啲組織啦，喺度打嗰啲船㗎嘛，打嗰啲運貨嗰啲船，跟住美國同埋英國唔知點解差腳，喺度打嗰啲國家，即係嗰啲組織啊嘛，射咗飛彈，跟住之後又話嗰度話會嗰啲咩報復，跟住希望唔好去到更高層次，即係英國又插埋一腳去，呢個都幾個禮拜之前，都唔係幾個禮拜前，應該持續緊。
It's amazing. Can you remind us what's on it? There are some little mementos of human life on there, aren't there? We've got one of the examples.
There is a so-called Golden Disc, and it has music from around the world, all kinds of messages for
羅希仔咪影 send 咗好多相俾我哋嘅，係咪就係你見嗰啲人全部都影過齊相，就係有啲冇見過，即係見咗冇影相嗰啲人？
應該差唔多都 send 晒相俾你㗎。
OK。
其實都唔係見到好多人啫。跟住姐姐個相你又收到嘛？
friendly 姐姐。
friend
哦，好似有，好似有。好似
然後啊，阿邝生，即係你對夫婦同我同阿細佬見嗰啲三伯啊，
我好似見杜太喎。
啊，
杜太啊，以前
同埋啊，
以前鄰居嗰度。
杜太同埋阿 Vinny 啊。
哦，OK。嗰個 B B 係邊個嚟㗎？阿細佬阿羅希仔淨係話冇 keep 嚟人哋個 B B，但係佢冇話邊個嘅。
嗰個 B B 係咩咧？以前喺香港朋友佢個女個即係個孫啊。
哦，即係唔係杜太個女嚟㗎？
唔係。
阿杜已經佢哋
冇見到。
OK。冇問到。
冇問到。
OK。
同阿杜太都飲過2次茶。
哦 OK。杜太係咪仲係住喺小山園？OK。有冇翻過小山園？
冇啊。
OK。住邊度？
住過佐敦嗰間叫做怡東酒店，又去澳門，去阿 Amy 屋企住過幾晚。我同阿 Amy 同佢老公同佢阿媽、個奶奶個大陸嗰邊幾個鐘頭。
哦，幾個鐘頭？
係啊，食咗餐
就翻返嚟。
食咗餐午餐，行咗一陣，商場就翻。
哦，咁過癮。
係。
咁過去係咪好麻煩定係就咁？
過去之前仲要換咗回鄉證。
哦。
update個回鄉證先至有得過去。阿細佬冇回鄉證嗰個，佢自己喺澳門行咗幾條街咁樣。
即係佢冇回鄉證係冇申請過啊，定係佢？
因為佢從來未申請過。
哦。
咁佢要回鄉證咧，就要申請呢個特區護照先至，經過特區護照先至可以申請回鄉證，所以佢翻咗香港又攞埋特區護照，跟住申請回鄉證，但係回鄉證未到手嘅。會寄俾阿 Paul Auntie。咁阿 Paul Auntie保管住先咁樣。所以我就翻到香港，淨係搞即係嗰啲回鄉證嗰啲都搞1、2日啦。
OK。我都有回鄉證，不過梗係過咗期啦，但係應該仲有銀包嘅。
翻去你自己睇下咧，要補領要拎個舊回鄉證去補領好容易啫，冇先至麻煩。
但係如果冇回鄉證，即係入唔到中國境，即係話
係啊，
唔可以去嗰啲咩 Air China 嗰啲，佢要喺中國入境，即係攞 visa，一係就 update 回鄉證。
如果用英國護照申請 visa 又貴又耐。West End 係咪啊？嗰條路通咗未㗎？而家？
通咗，但係佢之前水浸，而家唔知點。
我唔落雨幾日就冇水浸㗎啦。
唔知啊，而家唔知點，好難講水，因為之前都試過，我覺得係冇落雨，但係仲係水浸嘅，所以而家唔知點。
總之嗰條路通咗啦。
我冇行過，總之。我答唔到你。
佢之前都通㗎，係有紅綠燈啫嘛，嗰度，但係跟住又水浸，好煩。佢以前咧嗰度冇整個路口之前咧，都唔係咁浸嘅，一整咗路口之後就好浸。記唔記得嗰度？嗰路口唔知用嚟做咩，做咩？
你哋做道路工程嘅都唔知，我更加唔知啦，就係。
On BBC iPlayer, you'll find what you love.
It's been a tough day. We want to help.
And love what you find. You see?
Yeah, I see it.
Discover gripping thrillers
Everything's just changed. How do you get that?
or comedy bombs.
你而家一個星期仲翻幾多日外賣嗰度
？3日、5、6日。
哦。
都係禮拜四翻，就翻。
你翻工翻唔到㗎。而家仲有一個星期翻一次學。
今日咯。即係要翻學嗰時翻。佢放假嗰時咪得翻。會有紅燈添，紅燈。
大 B 就乜事都冇係咪？
都有少少咳。
哦。
我哋全部都係有少少咳嘅，我都有少少咳。
你哋嘢嚟嘢去咧，就係
好似一開頭係哥哥有呢個扁桃腺炎，即係嗰啲咩喉嚨發炎喉嚨發炎，然後跟住就惹到細 B，跟住細 B 又惹到子慧，跟住子慧又惹翻大 B 哥。大 B 同埋我都有中咗少少。
走埋一間屋好搞晒咁，即係好似300兩，係又中咗嗰個高鼻，然後跟住個細女又中。即係最近呢1-2個禮拜。哦。咁啊，都冇乜嘢。哇！佢哋即係好似中過幾次添喎。
我中過2次。
foreign workers. But it stressed that many pensioners will be worse off. They don't pay national insurance, so won't benefit. And they, as with everyone with a vision that is rising,
係搭飛機咧，搭長途機咧，即係喺香港咁長途要搭經濟艙就好辛苦。
你係呢個
我同阿細佬去嗰陣時搭嗰個係business class，梗係舒服啦，好有張床瞓咁滯。翻嚟轉咧就搭嗰個 Premier Economy，都好過經濟艙好多㗎啦。對腳起碼伸得直，個座位闊，又係見到
坐幾耐？
嚇？
坐幾耐嘅
成14個鐘頭。
14個鐘，點解咁耐嘅？依家以前仲快啲喎。
唔經俄羅斯啊嘛，所以行多咗路咯。
OK。
即係經濟艙嗰啲真係逼到沙甸魚咁樣。即係尤其是你袋子或者大隻㗎嘛。即係我自己，譬如話，如果要我搭經濟艙，我真係寧願唔去。屈十幾個鐘頭，真係腳都麻木啊！
咁咪搭呢個轉機咯，即係7個鐘。以前去阿聯酋嗰啲7個鐘真係。
咁咪轉下機係會舒服啲嘅，點都冇焗喺架飛機10幾個鐘頭咁辛苦就。
Everyone in work is paying tax twice, once in income tax, once in national insurance. That's unnecessarily complicated because all that money ultimately goes into the same pot, not the same public services. But it's also unfair because it's not like people in work face this double taxation compared to everything else. So my ultimate long-term ambition is to end that unfairness, and if we stick to our plan, we'll be able to make good progress towards that goal in the next parliament.
The government has said it can only get rid of the tax when it is possible without increasing borrowing or compromising services. It remains an ambition with detail. Raises questions ministers can't answer. Sir Keir Starmer was quick to paint it as an unfunded spending pledge to suit £1 billion unfunded commitment yesterday from the Chancellor when he entered the country to abolish national insurance. That's staggering. And in the end, the overall story of the budget, of course, as ever, the government is giving one hand and taking much more with the other. Of course, in 14 years, of course, they're not going to be taken by this culture. They want an excellent culture.
Labour are still working out the impact that yesterday's budget has on their own spending plans. They may still have months before their ideas are put to the test. This evening, Rishi Sunak told the Prime Minister still his working assumption that the general election will be the second time this year.
Councillors in Pembrokeshire have voted in favour of a 12.5% increase in council taxes for the year.
12.5%.
Had been proposed more or less for independents.
Norwich 唔知加幾多？
Labour, Plaid Cymru and Lib Dem councillors is forecasting £1,600,000. The Welsh Government does have the power to enact tax increases, it's choosing not to. From the meeting in Hereford West, Wales correspondent Thomas Morgan reports. Hertfordshire County Council is facing new president, but the £41.9 million for the first time social costs and increased education costs, and hopefully better public facilities under financial pressure on the council. Councillors were receiving the
你要唔要得閒過嚟我哋屋企瞓下啊？得閒過嚟我哋屋企瞓下，趁下公公未喺度，你過嚟。
and lower the 12.5% was approved in the West. That still means an annual
就咁停喺度咧。
咁先6抽啊！我哋
啊？
嗰個車。
voting the proposal through means that next year the
children were reported to have been kidnapped in the state of Borno. The UN has warned that women and girls are among those most affected by the Islamist insurgency in the country. The BBC's West Africa correspondent Lainey Jones has sent this report from Maiduguri, in the northeast of Nigeria.
There has been a lull in the number of mass kidnappings of children in Nigeria since the abduction of 276 girls from a school in Chibok in April 2014. Now, with the 10th anniversary of that tragedy in mourning, Nigeria is once more being rocked by mass abductions. At around 8:30 this morning, armed men thought to be affiliated to the Islamist militant group Boko Haram stormed the grounds of a school in Kaduna on motorbikes. It took more than 100 students aged between 8 and 15 and shot a girl who's now in hospital. In a separate incident late last week, dozens of women and children are reported to have been abducted by Boko Haram fighters on the other side of the country in Borno State. They were out fetching firewood to cook with. The military says it's launched a search and rescue operation to find them. The government has long claimed that insurgents from Boko Haram have been defeated and no longer pose a threat to the safety of northern Nigerians. This incident suggests that despite some improvements in the level of security over the past decade, Boko Haram still remains an active threat.
Senior Conservatives have given their backing to the Science Secretary, Michelle Donnelly, who is facing calls to resign after taxpayers footed her £15,000 legal bill. Ms Donnelly was found to have wrongly accused an academic of supporting Hamas. The leader of the House of Commons, Penny Mordaunt, said Ms Donnelly was a good character, while Rishi Sunak said legal disputes were always funded by the government when ministers were doing their jobs. Our political correspondent Helen Capp reports.
Earlier this week, Ms Donnelly withdrew in full the allegations she had made, saying she fully accepted that Professor Kate Sang was not an extremist, a supporter of Hamas, or any other prescribed organisation. Professor Sang has been paid £15,000 in legal costs and damages. Criticism has been growing since it emerged that the government had put in the bill rather than Ms Donnelly herself. Labour has described the move as a new low, but the leader of the Commons, Penny Mordaunt, defended her. She told the Commons she could have claimed a redundancy payment in 2022 after resigning as Education Secretary in Boris Johnson's cabinet 2 days after she was promoted into the job.
When the Honourable Lady was entitled to redundancy payments from being Secretary of State, which was £16,000, she did not take that and handed it back to the department because it was the right thing to do. And I think that speaks volumes about the Honourable Lady's character.
Government sources have told the BBC that the original letter was written with officials and legal input and had been cleared for publication by the department at the highest levels. Ms Donnelly's department has previously said there was an established precedent that ministers are provided with legal support where matters related to their conduct and responsibilities as a minister. Downing Street has said the Prime Minister retained confidence in Ms Donnelly.
You're listening to the 6 o'clock news on BBC Radio 4. The main news so far.
係啊，依家係哇行 West End 嗰度，即係通咗嘅。啱啱先，但啱啱冇啊，我啱啱先驚，咦，行咗過嚟冇水浸，啱啱你睇你我先醒起，因為 Tom 叫我行，而家啱啱行完 West End，唔係應該行完嗰個 Take from Lane 同埋 Take from Lane 嘅 Take from Woods，跟住而家去到 West End。
Artificial intelligence and the Brummie accent collide. The Defence Secretary Grant Shapps has urged Germany to send long-range cruise missiles to Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has so far refused Kyiv's request, fearing it would lead to an escalation of the conflict. Speaking during a trip to the Ukrainian capital, Mr. Shapps emphasised the need for weapons. I do think it would be very helpful if they said they're long-range missiles, the Taurus missiles. So I'll carry on making an argument to Germany. We've seen how effective long-range missiles can be. They're at the heart of, as you say, opening up the Black Sea, where the exports are now nearly as great as they were before the war started. So a real success for Ukraine in this battle. The Foreign Secretary, Lord Cameron, has said sending long-range missiles is a matter for the German government. But on a visit to Berlin, he told journalists it was Britain's experience that such weapons had helped Ukraine defend itself. Lord Cameron has been holding strategic talks with his German counterpart. The meeting has been overshadowed by questions about calls to Russian media in which German Air Force officers made a highly sensitive suggestion that a few British personnel were on the ground in Ukraine. Our correspondent Jessica Parker is in Berlin.
There have been some blunt words between some figures in London and those representing Berlin about the now infamous pay for 4 senior German Air Force officers. The working theory is that one of them, who was in a hotel room in Singapore, dialed in on his phone or the hotel Wi-Fi, which in effect allowed spies onto the call. Lord Cameron, on a visit to see his counterpart in Berlin, Annalena Baerbock, praised company recrimination.
I don't want to play into the hands of some Russian narrative about divisions between allies. What I see, 100 and whatever it is, 19 days into the job, is incredible unity between allies, incredible unity in NATO, which has just got larger, the addition of Finland and Sweden as members.
Berlin hasn't specified whether it thinks the case will be tampered with, while also warning that the Kremlin is trying to sow division. It's also trying to argue that this is a case of human error rather than a sign of sloppy security protocols. Investigation.
Sweden has formally joined NATO, becoming the alliance's 32nd member. NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg described it as an historic moment. Russia has repeatedly warned Sweden against joining the organization. President Biden will announce during his State of the Union address tonight that he's ordered the US military to set up a port in Gaza to get more humanitarian aid into the territory by sea. The president should say it will involve a temporary pier to transport supplies from ships to the shore. Ships will sail from Cyprus, where Israeli security inspections will take place. The Scottish Government has announced there will be a independent inquiry into the police response to the murder of Emma Caldwell almost 20 years ago in Newark Campgrounds. He was first questioned about the crime in 2008, but wasn't charged and went on to commit a series of rapes and sexual assaults. Here's our Scotland correspondent, Paul Thornton.
Emma Caldwell was killed by the serial rapist Ian Hacker in 2005, but while he was accused multiple times by police officers in the months after her body was found, it took 19 years to convict him. Scotland's Justice Secretary Laura Constant said Emma Caldwell's family wanted answers and deserved nothing less. The reports for a public inquiry is overwhelming. Among the questions the inquiry will try to answer are why senior detectives refused to keep Hacker as a suspect, why they disregarded evidence that he was a sexually violent user of prostitutes, and what was done about the evidence linking him to Emma Caldwell in the case of against four other men collapsed. Emma Caldwell's mother, Margaret, was at the Scottish Parliament to hear the inquiry announced. She told Angela Constance that her family would wait however long it took to see the truth. She never apologized for the
Burglary 16-year-old Brianna died a year ago during a trip to Syria against his sentence. Last month, Eddie Redmayne was jailed for life with a minimum term of 20 years and $2 million. The burglars of a political party in Cheshire stabbed him repeatedly. During the sentencing hearing, the judge said he was motivated in part by hostility to Brianna Jones' transgender identity. Nationwide Helping Society is offering £2.9 million to take over Ashton Ledford Money. Create a second biggest provider of mortgages and savings products. Details from our business editor Simon Jack. Virgin Money is the name of its Clydesdale, Yorkshire and Redbridge Monobank train, 91 branches and 61 million customers. And of those, the nationwide 600 branches with 8 million customers would struggle nationwide challenge to incorporate the bank and to become the second biggest provider of mortgages and savings products after Lloyds. Under the proposed deal, the Virgin Money brand will be retained in the short term, but will be phased out over the next 6 years. Nationwide said it will continue to honour its promise to keep all existing nationwide branches open until 2026, and said it plans no material changes to Virgin Money's 7,300 strong workforce in the near term. The takeover needs the approval of Virgin shareholders, but the board said it will be recommended that Richard Branson's Virgin Group owns 40% of the stake. Crosswise Group and MPs concluded that the post office is not willing to release the compensation schemes for some postmasters wrongly. 100 share index on the day up 13.67,692. Institutional capital, the Dow Jones was up 78 points at 38,739. On the close markets, the pound is trading at $1.27.9, and against the euro sterling is at €1.70. That means the euro worth 85.5 pence. A survey by the anti-discrimination charity Get Out has found that 70% of female football fans experience some form of sexism or misogyny while playing. It's what puts results to where women work in the job. Some say their experiences and use their hopes for a future in sport. Of course, one of these sport is more.
The one woman who wants to remain anonymous, coaching football is once her dream job. Sexism and misogyny is about dream and mother. She says she suffered recently assault, sexist comments from parents and coaches, and was ignored by opposition managers. Her most traumatic experience came at the hands of a tutor on an FA coaching course.
I was the only woman on the course, and I would describe what happened to me as 3 years inside my feet. I didn't realise at the time how bad it was.
She didn't feel able to fully report what happened to her, but did complain to the FA about an abuse in her care. In a statement, the FA said sexism, misogyny and abuse had no place in football. It said it was deeply concerned when the allegations were raised, and following a thorough investigation into the allegations made at the time, terminated the tutor's contract. Research from Cricket Out suggests the woman's experience was part of a widespread problem. Of the 150 female football coaches surveyed, 80% had experienced some form of sexism or misogyny while on the job. More than half included quitting because of sexism. The former coach who spoke to the BBC said she hoped other girls and women wouldn't be put off by her experiences, saying highlighting them could be a catalyst for making football a more inclusive space.
In cricket, a calamitous massive absence left England with a mountain climb after the first day of the big test against India in Dharamsala. Tourists were bowled out 280 shallow overs, scoring just 81 runs for their last 8 wickets. Whistling with all 10 wickets falling to spin. At stumps, India were 135 for 1, placing England down 16 points. Researchers have discovered what they believe to be the world's oldest fossil forest in the sandstone cliffs along the Devon and Somerset coast. Dates back 390 million years. These fossils are the prototypes of modern trees. They're called Calamathicum, and they resemble palm trees that could grow to around 13 feet tall. One of the nominees for the British Academy Games Award has been announced this afternoon. As outstanding creative achievement in the video game industry. Our reporter Guy Lambert has the details of who's on the list.
There are 40 games nominated, from the latest web-slinging Spider-Man adventure from Sony Interactive Entertainment to Dave the Diver, a game where players collect fish, complete quests, and manage a sushi restaurant. The BAFTA Games Awards recognise and celebrate part only 101's job could do.
The headlines again. The Institute for Fiscal Studies is accused of Conservatives and Labour of a conspiracy of silence about the scale of spending cuts and tax rises needed to stabilise public finances. It's a tough decision to be made after the next election. The woman who accused the Red Bull Formula One boss, Christian Horner, of inappropriate behaviour has been suspended from full pay. More than 100 people have been abducted by gunmen from a school in Northern Ireland. BBC News. This evening by Alan Smith. In a moment on Radio 4, Joanna Lumley and Roger Allen star in the 6:30 comedy Conversations with
We've